What if healing your relationship with alcohol wasn't about discipline, but about regulation? Today's guest rewired his life from the inside out using breath, mindfulness, and a radically different recovery path. If the traditional route never really resonated with you, this conversation just might.
Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. You may have made the decision not to drink alcohol, or at the very least, not at work-related events. Whether you've never been a drinker, are in recovery, or made a health-related decision, we see you, and you are not alone. In today's world, networking, socializing, and celebrations often happen over drinks, and the struggle can be real. Through this podcast, we're changing that narrative. We're here to create a community where individuals like you, who choose not to drink or drink less, can find camaraderie, support, and practical advice.
Welcome back to Sober Life Rocks, where we amplify powerful sober voices and the stories behind them. I'm your host, Margie Schaller, and every week we have powerful conversations with people living their sober choices out loud. Now, before we dive in, we live in amazing times. More and more people are making sober choices, and the stigma is slowly eroding as we talk about the amazing life we get to live. Now, if you are a leader in this space, a speaker or a writer, a podcaster or a coach, an influencer or community leader, we are on a mission to help you have even more impact. That's why we created Amplify Sober Voices, our thought leader conference happening January 15th, 2026. It's where change makers come together to recharge, connect, and reimagine what an inclusive alcohol optional world really looks like. Head to amplifysobervoices.com to grab your ticket and join us. We would love to see you there. Now, today's guest is Hamza Najam, a certified breathwork teacher, nationally certified recovery coach, and founder of Breathe Sober, a program that helps career-driven parents and professionals regain control over drinking and reconnect with a calm, clarity, and purpose. After struggling with alcohol for over a decade and finding that traditional recovery models just didn't quite fit, Hamza turned inward. He explored breathwork, mindfulness, and nervous system regulation, not only to get sober, but to stay rooted in lasting peace. Now, with over 4 years alcohol-free, he's got actually 5 years, right? He's guiding others to do the same with science-backed tools and a deeply empathetic approach. Hamza, welcome to the program.
Margie, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, when I saw you come through my podcast requests, I was so excited because, the traditional model isn't for everybody. And even when we do quit drinking that way, we still have to deal with the thing that got us to drink in the first place. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get there. But just to get to know you better, I would love to kind of hear, what was the role of alcohol in your life growing up? And then how did it kind of become a problem for you? And eventually, what happened?
Thank you. The role of alcohol, I mean, it started for me early on. I was around 16, maybe 17 when I had my first drink. But the difference in terms of context is I'm actually from Pakistan. So I grew up there and I moved to Canada when I was 19. So until that point, alcohol is banned in Pakistan. So we don't have bars, we don't have nightclubs, we don't just go and buy it. So we have to be very secretive about it, right? And what that meant
The
was,
forbidden fruit.
oh yes, indeed. As a 17-year-old, I remember, we drove to some random part of the city, dark alley. A guy comes in a motorbike, drops off a newspaper wrapped thing in the back, and takes the money and goes, right? So that's how we would do it. The problem with that is you don't just get to sit and sip and enjoy it because you're wondering if somebody's going to walk through the door. So we had to gulp it down. And essentially, my first introduction to alcohol was one with binge drinking, in
Mm.
that we couldn't leave the bottle behind. We couldn't risk getting caught. So we had to finish it all, even if it made us sick. So that's kind of
Mm.
how my relationship started. I just wanted to do the thing that I was forbidden to do. That's really what it was. But then as I grew older, I came to Canada. The first thing I realized is, oh my God, I can walk into a place and just buy alcohol. Oh my God. Like that was literally life-changing for me as a 19-year-old, 20-year-old. Gradually, it became a bigger part of my life. First, it was fun and going out with friends, every week or every weekend or whatever. Then I started to notice, as exams were happening and stress was building, I found myself sitting in a pub with a pint trying to study and retain information. Like it's, now that I look back, it's so stupid. Still passed the class though. Um, and it kind of started becoming my best friend, started becoming my identity. I started becoming the guy who is always having a good time, if you read between the lines. And somewhere along the way, it got out of control in that I wasn't reaching the goals that I had for myself. I struggled through college. I struggled through, different parts of life. And the more stress I had in my life, the more I would turn to drinking. Um, in my mid 20s, I was big into electronic music. House music was my life, still is to a certain degree. And I would love to go to raves and bars and listen to music and drink and party and all that. And my friends were in that scene. They were DJs, they were up and coming, they were really good. So I essentially piggybacked on them and got my way into the scene. We started a company, we started doing events ourselves, and that's essentially when things got completely blown out of proportion. In that circle, all you do is drink. We would have
Mm.
business meetings to meet with other promoters to talk about what kind of event we want to put together, and you would get served Jack Daniels and cocaine at on a 2 o'clock on a Wednesday. I kid you not. That is the reality of that circle. Um, Things got worse. The worst was when I started realizing that I need to stop. Because until that point, I always told myself, I can stop when I want to, I just don't want to, right? That's the classic thing that we all tell ourselves until you put your money where your mouth is. Day one, day two, by day three, you're like, some other day, another life, maybe, but right now, no, I need to have my drink. And each time, and I had a lot of painful emotions that I wasn't dealing with. I was sweeping them under the rug. There was a lot of pain from my family. I got disconnected from them, so to speak, for a
Mm.
good decade where I didn't see my mom or my dad. It was a
Mm.
very, very, very deep, dark time, and I was masking it all with all the partying, and that's sort of, my how I was feeling inside and the person I was projecting outside were two completely different people, and that was what was eating me up inside, and I was hiding it all with drinking. It got to a point where I would drink all night, pass out, wake up, hangover, hear the dogs, start again. I'd been to work many times after waking up, taking a couple of shots, and then brushing my teeth, and off to work I go. So
Mm.
that's where I had ended up. And when I looked back, I realized like this is not why I came to this country. So what gives? And then I tried AA. I was around 27 at the time. I was at a party. I passed out in a lake. People had to drag me out. I would have drowned had I not
Mm.
had people not seen me. So that was my big wake up call, 2016. And I tried AA then. It was okay. Like I went to a few meetings for a good 4 weeks, but I didn't stop drinking. In fact, when I would go to AA, I would feel like, okay, I'm not where these people are. So I still have, you tell myself that I still have time before that I need help, I tried therapy a year later. I was like, okay, nothing is changing because I swear it had got to a point where every Friday I would start, and before I knew it, it's Sunday night. The Monday anxiety is in full effect, and I would promise myself that, all right, tomorrow I'm done. That's it. That's it.
Mhm.
Maybe Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, I would make it. And for some reason, just whatever it is, I would always end up picking up a drink, picking up a
Mhm.
bottle of wine, picking up two, and just convincing myself that I don't need to do this. Therapy was good in reminding me of all the things that I've screwed up in my life, but I didn't necessarily get a path forward. It was more about just picking on old wounds. So I didn't work out at that time. I tried moderation. I tried leaving my wallet at home. I tried telling my friends, "Oh, I'm not drinking," and then they would peer pressure me into it. Within they wouldn't have to work very hard. But I mean, that's my story until March 11, 2020. That is the last day, or March 10th was the last day I had a drink, and it's then when everything changed for me.
So what happened?
What happened was that well, 2020 came around, a new decade. I picked myself up again in January, and then it took me till March to finally get it. What happened was I kept waking up and asking myself, why do I keep doing this to myself? Why does this keep happening? In the moment, I have a million and one reasons why I should go to this party, why I should go to this person's birthday, why I should do this. And every single time, it would turn into a complete bender, complete rager, where I would end up in some so and so's couch at 6 a.m. and in a random place in the city, and the party's still
What
going.
have I done? Yeah.
So I kept asking myself, what is wrong with me? What is the problem? Because everybody else seems to be okay with this lifestyle. How come what's wrong with me? So I had worked myself into a very dark corner in my mind where
Mm.
100% there was something wrong with me. And you know what? There was, but not what I had thought. What happened was that I started making some lifestyle changes in 2020. I didn't stop drinking, but I did stop smoking. So that was one thing, one quiver in my hat, if you want to call it that. I also stopped eating meat, so I was on a bit of a trend, but the drinking was still there, ever present. I came across a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. I got targeted by an algorithm, no less, of course. And so I bought the book, started reading it, and that completely changed my mind. Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you guys are watching this, and if you're not familiar with his work, oh my God, like it is groundbreaking stuff. And what I learned
Tell me
from
the name
that,
of the book again.
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That's the
Okay.
one he wrote in 2012. Then he wrote another one called Supernatural, which is even more amazing. And that is what changed my life. What I learned in there is that any kind of life that you want, a version of yourself, changing habits, being yourself, right? Because that's what it was. I was just being myself at that point. How do you change that? The deepest, the most deeply ingrained habits that just keep happening on autopilot. So I learned about quantum energy. I learned about quantum physics. I learned about our connection with the source. I learned about how to create change within with meditation. There's a specific meditation in there. And that was my first experience with any kind of meditation whatsoever. I had no
Hmm.
idea what to expect. And within the first 2 or 3 attempts, tears started flowing, things started
Mm.
happening, and I recognized that, wait a second, there is a whole world inside of me. And that's how I started the journey. Now we're 5 years on from that day or from that stage. But that is what taught me that all the answers that I'm looking for, it's not so and so's fault. It's not, so, well, if that DJ wasn't playing on Friday, then I wouldn't have gone, right? Like that's that kind of mentality. So it got me out of the victim mentality, that little box that I had put myself in, self-loathing, self-hatred, low self-confidence. I was right now, from what I look like right now, I was a good 50 pounds overweight. I couldn't find love in my life. I was so erratic. I was just wound up, so irritable, so frustrated. It wouldn't take me a lot, like even the slightest thing. Like people had to walk around eggshells, around me on eggshells, because
Hmm.
at any time things could go south.
Hmm.
So that is where I was. And then within 8-ish weeks of me consistently just investing more and more and more, it started with 5 minutes and then I worked my way all the way up to 10, then 15, then 20, finally 45 minutes. When I got to that level, then I would just come out of it feeling like everything is okay, that it's all good. Of course, I had to learn more and more. I learned MBSR, which is mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques. I
Mm-hmm.
read a lot of the work of John Kabat-Zinn, who is a pioneer in the mindfulness
Mm-hmm.
space. So once the motor got running, then I just kept going with it, kept going with it, kept going with it, and that's what happened. That's how things changed.
Well, let me see if I can unpack that a little bit because, you know, wellness, mindfulness, breathing, like these are all very, I'm just going to say it, these are all very trendy things right now. And the idea of taking better care of yourself and all of that. But how did that help you shift your relationship with alcohol?
So the big question of what's wrong with me is what I started getting answers for. What I recognized is that the more because look, meditation on its own, there's a million ways you can meditate. It has to be targeted. So I learned more and more. After reading that book, I learned about, I discovered Dr. Andrew Huberman, so I got fascinated with neuroscience. Then I went to Harvard X and I did a certification in neuroscience to just understand like what's happening in the brain. And instead of thinking that there's something wrong with me and this is just how I will always be, essentially I had given up hope. I has just accepted my fate that this is what it is. It showed me that you can change and that you have to go a little bit deeper. There's always root causes that are driving
Mhm.
what's happening on the surface. It's within, there's 7 layers of consciousness, so you have to kind of, look at the root causes. And I was drinking this much because I had been carrying so much baggage that I wasn't dealing with. And what I find is
Mhm.
that most of us are in the same boat. You live your life, you make mistakes, you go through life, you live, you learn. But if you don't deal with these things, especially the big things like a loss of somebody, like losing a job, losing a spouse, divorce, there's so many terrible things that can happen. Um, or even if nothing terrible happened to you and you kind of just work yourself into a pattern in your life where everything is
Right.
regulated by alcohol, that you needed to relax, you needed to unwind, you needed to go out and have fun, you needed to kill some time, what else are you going to do? It's your reward. All of these things are mental constructs, so, false beliefs.
Mhm.
We start to believe these things about alcohol. So the meditation and mindfulness, it was very targeted. I got into journaling. I learned about journaling prompts that helped me really isolate the thing that I am feeling at the time. I learned about where emotions live in your body. I learned about the chakras. So there was a lot of expansion happening at that time. And what's synonymous with AA is, how AA says, believe in a higher power. That
Mhm.
works. That works because it's not just about God. It's about something bigger than yourself. And when you
Yeah.
find that something bigger than yourself, then it's easy to let go of all the little things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I went through this phase where I recognized that I have unresolved millions of unresolved things that need to be resolved. I have to take ownership for the condition that my life is in, and I have to find a way to be okay with all of this. Because if I continue suffering and continue feeling like the victim and continue feeling these low vibration emotions, nothing is going to change. So to answer your question, how did that shift my relationship? The first thing it did was it made me realize that there's nothing wrong with me. I just
Mm.
have ended up in a place where things need to be dealt with. So I started on that path. I took my focus away from not drinking, right? Because what do we all do? Today I won't drink. Tonight when I get home,
Mhm.
I will just not do it. Each time you do that, you're putting it in the front and center of your mind. This, of course, I learned this much later, but this is called the white bear phenomenon. So I will not equals whatever that thing is. Now you're thinking about it. I
Mhm.
won't think about it. Well, you are right now, right? So what helped was to shift my focus onto the solution. So finally, the meditation and the mindfulness, it allowed me to accept that this is what it is. And only then can I now start the process of rebuilding and repair. It was
So,
like a weight lifted off my shoulders. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. So, many of us, when we find a community, whether it's AA, whether it's one of the sober communities that are out there now, we do find that there's this shifting of our friend group and what we do with our time. But because all of this was inner work, how did that happen for you?
Well, I really wanted the change. I was desperate. I had tried everything. I had done it all, like all the things you can find online,
Hmm.
all the little things, all the big things, the quick little resets, all of those things I tried. And the main problem was that I was not loving myself. I was not in a place where, when I said I couldn't find love in my life, well, that was because I thought of myself as ugly inside,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's these kind of things that allowed me to realize, to give me enough motivation to sort of power through the first few days of the withdrawals and the nasty
Hmm.
feelings
Hmm.
and all of that. But then things started to change. I hope I did your question justice, but
Well, I'm assuming that your people that you hung out with, that you went and partied with all the time, and the music scene and all that probably had to change, right?
oh yes, that had to all go away. Um, that is something that I knew I had to sacrifice. And I mean, it wasn't much of a sacrifice because it is what was making me sick. But 100%, anyone that is going to do this, you will lose people. And it's a great
Hmm.
thing for you to go through that purge because there's people that exist in your life for one thing and one thing only. They do right now. Imagine, look back amongst all of your friends. How many of them are always there when it's time to have a drink, but never again,
Hmm.
right? Or not for anything else. How many of your
Hmm.
friends will always reach out to you with, "Hey, got a bottle of wine. Want to do something?" Right?
Hmm.
Like that is you don't need those people in your life. They're good
Yeah.
to hang around with, but you can't depend on them emotionally. You can't depend on them for the real stuff. So I'm glad that it all slowly faded away. I had retained a few core friends, but that was almost 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, that part did suck, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But it is
Absolutely.
what it is. And the good thing is though that it started happening when I was stronger inside, stronger
Hmm.
with when I say stronger inside, I had a more complete sense of self-worth. I had a more complete sense of my own well-being. I had a better understanding of what kind of boundaries I need to make in order to change my life. Because once you start seeing the benefit of this all the hard work that you do, all the overcoming your cravings, all the withdrawals, all the, oh no, thanks, I'm not drinking. Oh, why not? Is something wrong with you? No, I just don't feel like drinking today. Please leave me alone,
Hmm.
right? Um, all, all of those things. What's worth it in the end is you find yourself in a place where everything is good. And when everything is good, you don't have any worries. When your glass is half full, you're not thinking about all the things you don't have in your life, and you're firmly focused on I guess the right word is rebuilding, not fixing, but rebuilding the parts of your life that suffered the most from not
Hmm.
just alcohol, but the lifestyle that corresponds
Hmm.
with the heavy drinking.
1,000%. I mean, I remember when I first got into AA and they talked about that you will, you know, regain the things that you lost. And I'm like, I don't want that. I don't
I
want
want
the
something
things that
different. Yeah.
yeah. And today I do. I mean, today my life is unrecognizable from anybody who knew me in my 20s and early 30s. So thank God for that. Okay, so now you're on your feet, you're doing well. Like, how did you transition that place into one where you're now doing for others?
Ooh, so going back to the bigger than yourself thing, I
Uh-huh.
recognized early on that I'm going to need something like that in order to have the complete transformation that I was looking for. There's also, I've always been a people person. I love making friends. I have no problem walking up to a stranger and starting a conversation. I have what you might say God-given skills that apply perfectly in this kind of a scenario where I want to help others, But those people who don't want my help or don't think they need help, how do you get through to them, right? And there's way
Right.
more of those than ones that say, okay, I need help, help me, right? For every one person that is ready to accept help, there's at least 20 more that need the help but
Mm-hmm.
are not quite there yet. So I also recognize, think of it like an epiphany, maybe, my higher self planting the seed in me. But there was a time, a morning when I woke up and I saw a very clear path of my life and how all the suffering that I had gone through had given me the experience to now do something different with it, which is go out there in the world, share my story, and hopefully people relate to it and realize that, you know what, maybe I want this for myself too. Um, that was the driver. That was the main motivation. I wanted to do something with my life. And to be fair, I had a very comfortable, well, not at that time. I was hanging on by a thread, but in my the last 5 years of my sobriety, I have been in the same workplace, same job for 13 years. And a year and a half ago, I finally let it go um, to do this full time. And it was not comfortable by any means. It was, anytime you transition from full-time employee to full-time entrepreneur, there's going to be massive bumps
Scary.
along the way. And of course, it
Mm-hmm.
is wildly scary. But I didn't feel that. I mean, I felt it, but I didn't let it stop me. The other part of it is when I started diving into the neuroscience and how the brain functions. And once you understand those things, how easy it becomes to use science to propel your life forward. I was like, man, I have to do something with this. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how it all started. I knew that I had to develop myself, like I was just a person at that time. So that's where all the certifications came. I hunted them down. I found the right one for the right purpose. I started a community, and I started working with people. And when I started getting the positive feedback about how much their lives have changed, how well they're doing, and how thankful they are, and what an honor. So I was like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is what I'm going to do. That was, of course, 2020, 2021. 2021 is when I created a brand so that I could, because I have a business background. That's what I did my whole life. So that I applied what I already knew to set something up that is affordable, that is easy, that works, that is a little different from what's already out there. And everybody told me that I'm crazy for even, going up against the AA. Like, how are you going to do that? I'm not going up
Mm-hmm.
against anything. I'm just putting something else there along with all the other
Yeah.
things to see what works for and for whom. Turns out that most people who you would look at and be like, that person is not an alcoholic by any means until you talk to them and until
Mm-hmm.
they open up to you. And then you see the real suffering inside. Those are the people that I've been able to help. Those are the people with young children, people who have a lot to lose in that sense, people who are frustrated with life, people who are just, running up against a brick wall and are deeply motivated to change, but life gets in the way. Like, who has time to go to rehab? Like, which
Mm-hmm.
mom or dad is going to leave their kids and go to rehab? They'd rather just suffer than do something like that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it had to be something that works for them, especially with kids myself. That's how Breathe Sober came to be. I got my neuroscience education done, then I got my mindfulness-based stress reduction done, then I learned NLP, which is more about the science of how we talk to ourselves and like the different
Mm-hmm.
systems that we set up. Then I kept going. Then I got certified as an alcohol recovery coach, a nationally certified alcohol recovery coach, because I didn't want to do this stuff without the proper credentials or the proper training.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing when you do it for yourself, but working with other people, like everybody's different.
Yes.
So I did that back in 2022, I think. And then after that, I even like almost a year and a half in, almost 2 years into my sobriety, I discovered, not discovered, somebody just came into my orbit online and I connected with them. They were a breathwork teacher, are a breathwork teacher. And she offered me a free session, and I did it. And it just completely, I didn't think that there was still something left in me to bring up. But lo and behold, I had only done maybe 10% of the work. And when I did that
Mm,
first breathing session, so many things came up for me. I cried after that, started writing stuff down. And after that, I was like, oh my God, yes, this is where I'm going next. And then
mm.
I found this amazing teacher in Portugal. I learned from him and practice, 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 and changed my life completely on its head. So that was now a few years ago. So since then, Breathe Sober has been helping people, moms, dads, people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, all walks of life. We have lawyers, doctors, we have yoga teachers, we have people,
Mhm.
like I said, all walks of life that are learning this incredibly powerful skill to not just stop drinking. And this is where it gets interesting. I have now a 1 year program where I don't do anything shorter. So people join my program, it's for an entire year, and I work with them for an entire year. And the reason for that is it only takes about 8 to 12 weeks to really get rid of all the alcohol symptoms. But we don't stop there. This is about building the most thriving version of your life, one where
Mhm.
you don't feel like you need a drink. Because I've met lots of people, who are still abstinent from alcohol, but they have done nothing for their healing because nobody
Yep.
told them. They still think that all I have to do is not drink and I'll be okay. Meanwhile, things are,
It's tough.
in other departments, things are completely out of control. That's no good either. What's the point of that? The
Yep.
true freedom is when you choose. I tell my members, you can choose to have a drink, but choose it. Don't be, upset that you had a drink. If you choose to have a drink, own the choice. Turns out nobody wants to own the choice. So
Hmm.
they are just happy in their life. And that is what I mean by true freedom.
Yep.
Because you're still in a cage if you continue, if you have to tell yourself every day, today I shall not drink, and it's been 20 years since you had your last drink, or I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean.
Yep. Yep.
It's not that's still not healing. You're still suffering. You're still hiding. You're still living in a lack mindset. We need the abundance mindset. So how do we
Hmm.
generate that? How do we build that? And that is what Breathe Silver is all about. We
Nice.
use breath work, visualization, journaling, meditation on its own, pranayama, and a shitload of neuroscience to educate people because everybody that joins, they all leave with something amazing, which is
Hmm.
complete knowledge of what the real problem is and how to make sure it doesn't come back in the future. But people are dealing with all other problems of life with the same methods, with the same techniques that I'm teaching them. They're fighting less. They're happier at home. They're happier at work. They're waking up fully rested. They're eating well. They're looking after themselves. Isn't that what we all want at
It's
the end of the
beautiful.
day,
It's
right?
beautiful.
So
So I want to know, as we're kind of wrapping up here, throughout this journey of all the learning and the certification and stuff, as you came into your new self, what's one of the most surprising things that you've learned about yourself?
that is a good question. I would like to take 30 seconds to think about that. What is the most surprising thing that I learned about myself? The most surprising thing that I learned about myself was that I used to think that once you are a certain way, that's it. You can't change. I firmly believe that, firmly. And there were parts of me that things like anger, things like frustration, being quick to yell, those are all parts of my previous identity. I never thought that that could all go away. And turns out that it can. The other most surprising thing, there were two surprising things. The other most surprising thing is how much love I have within me for myself and for life. Not people, but life. And people are part of life. But life, being alive, and
Mhm.
that's all comes from gratitude, right? Being your heart. From the day, even before you're born, before your brain is formed, your heart forms first, and then it keeps beating for the rest of your life. Isn't that a miracle? Right? Like, isn't
Mhm.
that crazy? So it's appreciating these things that I never thought I would be someone like that.
I
So
love that.
those are the two most surprising things.
And then the last question I have is this. For somebody who's listening who is in that same place of feeling stuck, the perpetual cycle of I'm not going to do this again. Oh, damn it, I've done it again. And for whom, the traditional methods maybe haven't worked, but are a little skeptical of all this woo-woo, that you're talking about. Like, what would you say could be a first step for them to build a little bit of success and then be open to more?
So the first step is you have to approach this with curiosity instead of judgment. So each time you are telling yourself, why did you do this again? You're terrible. You're weak. You can't do this. You're always doing this, right? Like we say these things to ourselves. We won't say them to other people. So you have to approach it with curiosity. End it at why. That's it. Nothing further. Second is what you may not recognize is that there's the old mind and the new mind. The old mind is essentially everything you have done in terms of your habits, what you think, what you believe, and all of that. The new mind is the part of you that every so often comes out and says, let's do something about this. But then life takes over and sort of you kind of let it go by the wayside. Please don't ignore that voice. That voice is your intelligence. It is coming from within you, and that is your gut. That is your new mind trying to surface. And all it takes is for you to have the first realization that there's nothing wrong with you, you're not some hopeless addict, or you're not just, stuck in this place, or all the odds can be stacked against you. All it takes for all of it to go away is a different perspective. And the perspective will change when you get some wins. So the
Mhm.
first step is when you feel the urge to drink the next time. I have an alternate nostril breathing technique on my YouTube channel. It's free. I'll share the link with you guys. It has a full protocol that takes about 10 minutes. And when you are feeling the urge to drink and trying to not act on it, in that moment, your nervous system is acting up. You're going from a state of rest into a state of sympathetic. Your fight or flight is being turned on. Your fight or
Mhm.
flight will always turn on within seconds because it's all those nerves are connected, plugged into the spine. So it immobilizes you very quickly. It's by nature, that's what the design is. It takes around 10 minutes for the parasympathetic to kick back in, and it's the entire game is of that window because it's
Mhm.
always in that window when you tend to give in. When you feel the urge, you feel the stress, you feel those not so good feelings within, and your automatic response to that feeling is, I need a drink. So there's a way to interrupt that. And my video, my alternate nostril breathing technique, which then follows the 7Y exercise, I go into it in full detail in that video. I would love for you guys to see it. I also have a masterclass that specifically explains the role of the nervous system and how alcohol isn't necessarily the main problem anymore, that it is more a nervous system issue. It explains all of that in detail. If you can just for one time interrupt that pattern with something as simple as your breath, and realize 10 minutes later that you don't have the urge anymore, you don't have the craving anymore, and you're actually
Mhm.
completely fine, that needs to register in your head the first time for you to be motivated to do it the second time, and then the
Love
third,
that
and then
so
a
much.
fourth, and then a fifth. And if you would like to speak with me or to connect with me, my YouTube is, of course, all the free content is there, but you can connect with me on my Instagram. I have tons of content there. I have lots and lots of course, I have all the free stuff, but I also have lots of little programs that are all under $50, $30, $60, bite-sized
Yes.
stuff that is designed to specifically address each and every one of these things. So please,
Beautiful.
um,
We'll put all the links to all of that in our show notes. So thank you. Thank you for that.
you're very welcome.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap this up? Because I'm just so excited by all these nuggets you've been dropping.
Uh, the only thing I'd like to say is life is short. And
Mm.
what I mean by this super cliche statement is you can go through an entire lifetime essentially chasing your own tail. What that means is you create problems and then you worry about those problems and then you worry about what might happen. And in worrying, you end up creating more problems and the cycle just keeps going on and on. And the new problem then takes precedent and then the previous problems remain unresolved and all of that. Your time is the only thing. We spend 40 hours a week on average trying to make money in exchange for this finite time that we get, which then gets spent on alcohol, which then makes you feel the way you feel. And all of it is, for lack of a better term, most of it is in your head. It's so if you can just zoom out for a second and recognize that the average person gets 85, maybe 90 years. Well, 80 to 85 is the average life expectancy these days. The quality of your life is the most important metric to measure your success by. Not money, not your home, not your car, but the quality of your life. Do you wake up feeling excited for what the day has in store for you? Or do you wake up with dread that, oh my God, here we go again?
Mhm.
That is the question I would like for all of you to think about
Mm.
and see if life is worth sacrificing a few weeks of suffering to then gain a lifetime of a completely different quality of life.
That is a mic drop moment for sure. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And for all of you listening, today's podcast is a reminder that recovery doesn't have to be, you know, life changing in a moment. It doesn't have to be like some crisis that gets to it. Like you can actually choose the healing that begins with something as quiet as your breath. If this story resonated with you, please hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone that you know that needs to know that there's more than one way to heal. And if you're ready to connect with other sober changemakers, please join us at Amplify Sober Voices on January 15th, 2026. It's our thought leader conference for those reimagining what sober leadership looks like. Grab your ticket at amplifysobervoices.com. We'd love to see you there. Until next time, take a breath, stay grounded, and remember that your sober voice matters. Thank you, Hamza.
You are very welcome.